Some people walk into a room and the room decides before they've said a single word what kind of person they are. That decision is made in about 3 seconds, sometimes less, and once it's made, almost nothing can undo it, except the truth arriving at exactly the wrong moment for the people who got it wrong. This is a story about that moment. The Fairmont Chateau Lacombe had been standing in Edmonton for longer than most of its staff had been alive. 42 floors of glass and copper, perched on the edge of the river valley, like something that had decided gravity was optional. On a clear January morning, you could stand at the lobby windows and watch the North Saskatchewan moving slow and gray below, half frozen, minding its own business. The lobby itself was the kind of place that made people straighten their backs without meaning to. High ceilings, a chandelier that cost more than most people's first houses, marble floors that clicked under every heel. Lenora Abara walked through the front doors at 11:47 on a Tuesday morning, and the lobby did not straighten her back. She was 61 years old, wearing a dark wool coat that had been washed so many times the elbows had gone soft and shiny. Her boots were sensible, low-heeled, waterproofed, the kind you bought for Edmonton winters because you respected what Edmonton winters could do to your feet. She carried a large canvas tote bag on one shoulder, the kind sold at farmers markets, with a smudge of something near the bottom that might have been flour. Her hair was natural, silver at the temples, pulled back simply. She moved without hurry. She moved like someone who had nowhere in particular to be and had made peace with that a long time ago. She crossed the lobby toward the front desk, and the lobby watched her do it. The man behind the desk, his name tag said Trent, tracked her from about 15 feet out. He was 26, blonde, the kind of put-together that came from caring very much about being put together. He had been working the Fairmont's front desk for 2 years, and he had developed, over those 2 years, a reliable instinct for what he called the type. His instinct fired now, clean and certain. He waited until she was directly in front of him before he looked up from his screen. "Can I help you find something?" he said. "Not welcome to the Fairmont. Not good morning. Can I help you find something?" As though she had wandered in off Jasper Avenue looking for a washroom, Lenora set her tote bag on the counter, not on the floor, on the counter with a small, quiet thud, and said, "I have a reservation." Trent's expression did not change. His eyes moved to the tote bag and then back to her face, and there was something in that movement, something practiced and barely visible. That said, "I doubt it." "Last name? Abara." He typed. He took his time typing. He squinted at the screen the way people do when they want you to know they're working very hard at something. "I'm not seeing anything," he said. "Try the corporate account," Lenora said. "It may be listed under Meridian Group." Trent typed again. His jaw shifted slightly, the way jaws do when the search returns something you weren't expecting and you need a moment to recalibrate. "It says here this is a suite," he said. He said it the way you might say it says here you've won the lottery, not quite believing it, offering it back to be corrected. "The Riverview Suite," Lenora said. "Yes. That's a—" He stopped himself. "It's a $1,200 a night suite," she said pleasantly. "I know, I've stayed in it before." Something passed across Trent's face then. Not embarrassment, not quite. More like a gear slipping, a system encountering input it hadn't been designed for. He looked at her coat. He looked at the tote bag. He looked back at his screen. "I'll need to verify a credit card," he said. "Of course." She reached into the tote bag, past what appeared to be a reusable water bottle, a paperback novel, and produced a slim black wallet. She placed it on the counter. She did not open it. She let it sit there. Trent stared at it for 1 beat longer than he should have. "Ma'am, I'll need to actually see." "Trent," a new voice. From the side, both of them turned. The woman who had spoken was about 40, wearing a hotel blazer, and the quiet authority of someone who had spent 20 years making difficult situations disappear before they became scenes. Her name was Patricia Osei. She went by Pat, and she was the Fairmont Lacombe's front office manager. She had been crossing the lobby when she saw Lenora Abara walk in, and she had stopped walking and stood very still for about 4 seconds before redirecting herself toward the desk. "I'll take over here," Pat said to Trent. Trent opened his mouth. "Please," Pat said, which was not a request. He stepped back. Pat stepped forward and her face rearranged itself into a smile. Not the performance smile of front desk hospitality, but something more genuine, the kind you produce when you're genuinely glad to see someone. "Dr. Abara," she said. "Welcome back, we've been expecting you." Lenora smiled. "Patricia, how's your daughter? Terrible at algebra and wonderful at everything else," Pat said. "You want me to get someone to take your bag up?" "I've got it," Lenora said. Trent stood to the side. He looked like a man trying to solve a math problem in his head while also standing very still. Pat turned to him then, the way a person turns to close a door. Deliberately, finally. "Why don't you go take your break?" she said. "I'll finish the check-in." The thing about Lenora Abara was that she had never, not once in 61 years, wanted to be the kind of person who announced herself when she entered a room. Her mother had taught her that people who needed to announce themselves hadn't actually become anything yet. "The work speaks," her mother used to say, "stirring something on the stove, not looking up. You don't have to." Her mother had grown up in Enugu, Nigeria, and had come to Edmonton in 1978 with her husband and $14 in a Canadian bank account, and the specific steel-reinforced certainty that her children would not grow up apologizing for being in rooms they had every right to be in. Lenora had become a physician. Cardiology, specifically, had practiced for 30 years at the University of Alberta Hospital, had trained more residents than she could count, had published research that had been cited in journals she still found strange to see her name in. She had retired 14 months ago, at the specific recommendation of her own cardiologist, who had discovered in Lenora's left ventricle a structural irregularity that she, with the professional distance of someone who had spent decades reading other people's echocardiograms, had found almost interesting. She was managing it. She was fine. She had come to the Fairmont because the hospital was hosting its annual cardiology symposium. The same symposium she had presented at 11 of the last 15 years, and because the alternative was attending as a retiree and sitting in the third row, and she wasn't ready for that yet. She was here because her former department head, a gruff Quebecois man named Dr. Fontaine, had called her 3 weeks ago and said, "Lenora, I need you to moderate the Thursday panel, and don't tell me you have other plans, because I know for a fact you're retired." And because she had laughed, which she hadn't done enough of lately, and had said yes. She was here because she was still someone, even if nobody in the lobby could tell from her coat. Room 4201 looked out over the river valley, which, in January, was a sweep of white interrupted by the dark lines of spruce trees and the occasional gray smear of a walking trail. Lenora set her tote bag on the luggage rack, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at the view for a while. Her phone buzzed. A message from her daughter, Yewande, who was a second-year law student at Dalhousie, and texted with the energy of someone being paid by the punctuation mark. "How was the flight? Did they give you the good seat? Are you eating real food?" Lenora typed back, "Flight fine. Seat adequate. I ate almonds." Yewande responded with 7 consecutive crying lawing emojis, and then a picture of a salad she had apparently made for herself, which did look quite good. Lenora put the phone down. She thought about the man at the front desk. Trent. She had watched his face go through its little reckoning, and she had felt, as she usually did in those moments, the particular exhaustion of having to be patient in the face of someone else's assumptions. Not anger. She had stopped spending her anger on people like Trent a long time ago, not because they didn't deserve it, but because she had better things to spend it on. Just the tiredness. The bone-deep, decades-long tiredness of being read wrong in the first 3 seconds and having to wait for the room to catch up. She had gotten very good at waiting. The symposium's opening reception was Thursday evening in the Lacombe Ballroom on the 34th floor. Lenora arrived in a deep burgundy dress with a modest neckline and the pearl earrings her mother had given her in 1987 when she had matched into her residency. She arrived on time, which in medicine meant she arrived early. She collected a glass of sparkling water from the bar and stood near the window. She was not, she told herself, performing invisibility. She was just choosing her moment. The room filled slowly with the particular texture of a medical conference crowd. A lot of lanyards, a lot of sensible shoes, a lot of people who moved through rooms the way they moved through hospital corridors, efficiently and without friction. She recognized people. People recognized her. There were handshakes and the particular warmth of colleagues who had spent decades in the same professional orbit, the kind of warmth that has history in it. At some point, a young resident approached her, tentative and earnest, wanting to talk about her 2019 paper on myocardial fibrosis in Black women, which he had been assigned in his reading group, and which had, he said, genuinely changed how he thought about symptom presentation. He used the word paradigm shifting, and she could see he was a little mortified by it as soon as it left his mouth. She was kind. She had always been kind to the ones who were earnest. She did not see Trent again until Friday morning. She was coming down from her room, heading to the conference center on the second floor. She was early. She was always early. And the lobby was quiet in the way hotel lobbies are quiet before 8 a.m., that cathedral stillness particular to places that don't actually sleep. She was carrying her conference tote, a different bag from the canvas one, this one dark navy with the University of Alberta Hospital's crest on the side, and wearing her lanyard with her name and credentials. Dr. Lenora Abara, MD, FRCPC Cardiology, Symposium. Moderator Trent was behind the desk again. He looked up. He looked at the lanyard. His expression moved through several things in rapid succession. Recognition, recalibration, and then something that wanted to be invisible but wasn't. Lenora stopped. She was not going to let him off the hook by walking past. She had spent enough mornings letting people off hooks. "Good morning, Trent," she said. He looked like he had swallowed something sideways. "Good morning, Dr. Abara. Can I? Is there anything you need?" "No," she said. "I just wanted to say good morning." She held his gaze for one moment, long enough for him to understand that she had seen exactly what happened yesterday, and that she remembered it, and that she was not, in spite of it, going to be unkind to him, but that she was also not going to pretend it hadn't happened. Then she walked toward the conference center. Behind her, at the desk, Trent stood very still. The panel on Friday afternoon was called Equity in Cardiovascular Care, Progress, Gaps, and the Road Forward. Lenora moderated it. There were 4 panelists: a researcher from McGill, a cardiologist from BC Women's Hospital, a health policy analyst from the University of Toronto, and a young Black cardiologist from Manitoba who had done her residency at UAH under Lenora, and who, when she saw Lenora take her seat at the moderator's table, visibly relaxed. The session ran 90 minutes. Lenora was precise, warm, occasionally funny. She redirected long-winded panelists without embarrassing them. She drew out the quieter voices. She asked the question about 12 minutes in that made the room go very still, about whether the medical system's failure to adequately study cardiac symptom presentation in Black women was an oversight or a choice, and about what the difference between those 2 words implied for accountability. The room stayed still for several seconds. Then the young cardiologist from Manitoba said, "That's exactly it. That's the question." And the room exhaled, and the conversation became the kind of conversation that people kept referencing for the rest of the weekend. Afterward, in the hallway, a woman in her 70s, white-haired, impeccably dressed, the kind of woman who carries herself responsible for inventing good posture, stopped Lenora and said, "That was masterful." "Thank you," Lenora said. "I mean it," the woman said. She extended her hand. "Constance Hargreave. I'm on the hotel's advisory board. I try to attend one event a month, keep my finger on things." She paused. "I was also in the lobby yesterday morning." Lenora looked at her. "I saw what happened at the front desk," Constance said. "I want you to know it's not." She stopped. Started again. "I've been coming to this hotel for 30 years. What I saw yesterday was not acceptable. I've already spoken to the general manager." Lenora was quiet for a moment. "I appreciate that," she said. "I want to do more than appreciate it," Constance said. She said it the way people say things when they mean them specifically. "If you'd be willing, I'd like to speak with you further. Not today, but I'd like to." The general manager of the Fairmont Lacombe was a man named Denis Archambault. He was 54, francophone, had come up through the Fairmont's Quebec properties, and had been running the Edmonton Hotel for 7 years. He was good at his job. He was, crucially, not the kind of person who waited for problems to find him. He had been notified of the situation on Wednesday afternoon by Pat Ossie, who had written a brief and precise summary of what she had witnessed at the front desk and submitted it through the hotel's incident reporting system. Dennis had read it twice. He had pulled the desk camera footage. He had watched Trent's face as Lenora Abara walked toward him. He had seen enough. He had not said anything publicly yet because he was waiting for one piece of information, specifically for the symposium to end so that he could approach Dr. Abara without interrupting her work. On Friday evening, following the closing reception, Dennis appeared at Lenora's elbow with the quiet materializing efficiency of someone who had spent 20 years managing situations. He introduced himself. He asked if she had a moment. They found 2 chairs in a quiet corner of the lobby bar, away from the remaining conference crowd. "I want to apologize," he said. He said it without preamble, without winding up to it. "What you experienced when you arrived was wrong. It was a failure on our part, not an oversight. A failure. Those are different things, and I think you know that distinction better than most people." Lenora looked at him. "I do," she said. "The staff member has been spoken to," Dennis said. "Formally. It's being treated as a serious incident. There will be additional training, not the performative kind, the kind with actual accountability, and he will not be staffed on front desk duties while that process is underway." He paused. "I'm also asking Pat Ossie to take a lead role in redesigning how we train for this. She's wanted to for years. I should have listened sooner." Lenora was quiet for a moment. Outside through the lobby windows, Edmonton was dark and cold, and the river valley was invisible. "Did Pat tell you she was the one who intervened?" Lenora asked. "She did. She did it quietly," Lenora said. "She didn't make a scene. She didn't embarrass anyone she didn't have to embarrass. She just stepped in." She paused. "That's rarer than it should be." Dennis nodded. "I know. Are you promoting her?" Lenora said. "It came out simple and direct, the way things come out when you've spent decades asking questions you already know the answer to." Dennis looked at her for a moment. "We were already in conversation about a regional role," he said. "Yes. Good," Lenora said. The thing Lenora thought about on the flight home to Ottawa on Saturday morning was not Trent. She thought about him, briefly, wondered what story he told himself. Whether the incident had landed the way incidents sometimes land, opening something up, or whether it had rolled off. But she didn't spend much time there. She had spent too many years in hospital corridors beside people whose hearts were failing to spend much energy on the ones who needed a lesson more than she needed to teach it. She thought about her mother. She thought about that phrase, "The work speaks," and about all the ways it was true and all the ways it was complicated, because sometimes the work speaks into a room that isn't listening, and you can believe in what you've built and still have to wait at the front desk while someone decides whether you belong. She thought about the young cardiologist from Manitoba. Her name was Dr. Olamide Fasanya, and she was going to be extraordinary. Lenora had known it from the first month of her residency, and about the way Olamide had exhaled in that panel room when Lenora took her seat, as if she'd been holding her breath and could now let it go. As if someone else holding the room meant she didn't have to hold it alone. That, Lenora thought, was the thing. Not the lobby, not Trent. Not even Constance Hargreave with her 30-year loyalty and her belated standing up. The thing was Olamide exhaling. The thing was the next person in the room who looked like you. The door you left open just by walking through it. The way presence becomes permission for the people who come after. She pulled the paperback out of her tote bag, the same one she'd had in the lobby, and found her page. The plane lifted off over Edmonton. Below, the river valley disappeared into cloud, into white, into the soft erasure of altitude. Lenora read for 20 minutes, finished her tea, and fell asleep somewhere over Lake Superior, moving east into whatever came next. I've thought about this story a lot since I first came across it, about what it costs to stay quiet in moments when everything in you wants to say, "Do you know who you're talking to?" And about the kind of dignity it takes to not say it, to let the room figure it out on its own. Lenora Abara never needed that lobby to know what she was worth. She already knew. She'd known for 61 years. And that's the part they couldn't take from her. Not Trent, not his 3-second judgment, not any of it. But here's what I keep coming back to. The people who stayed quiet in that lobby. The ones who watched and looked away. Because Trent wasn't working alone, he was working in a room that let him. And every room like that only stays that way, because enough people decide it isn't their problem. Pat Osey decided it was her problem. Constance Hargreave decided, a little late, but genuinely, that it was her problem. What would you have done? That's not a rhetorical question. I actually want to know. Drop it in the comments. I read them. All of them. And what you have to say matters more than you might think. And if this story stayed with you the way it stayed with me, share it with someone. You know someone who needs to hear it. We all do. This is Harmon Tales. I'll see you in the next one.